So, looks like Anita Sarkeesian has quit video games and gone looking for something else to be offended by. And boy, has she found it. So this tweet just blew my mind, because she's found that Hollywood is horribly racist, with 75% of the people in the films being white, and only 12% black, and a mere token 5% Asian. Wow, you've really blown the lid off that racism, Anita. 75% white, therefore racism. That's until you compare it to, say, the demographics of America, where you find it's about 75% white people, 12% black people, and a mere 5% Asian. That is, Hollywood is an almost perfect reflection of the demographics of America. That is, it is unbelievably non-discriminating. Complaining that Hollywood is 75% white is like getting offended that Bollywood is 99% Indian. Yes, how dare they cater to an almost exclusively Indian audience? Why didn't they cast more white minorities in leading roles?
Cultural difference had to be repressed, denigrated, or contained. Part of this containment was accomplished by ensuring that opportunities for ethnic minorities in early cinema remained few and far between.
I mean, even if you take Anita's comments about movies with white people playing non-traditional white roles, whitewashing she calls it.
And it's not as if the explanations for whitewashing are ever new or particularly logical.
And she says it can be a disaster at the box office. Oh, really, Anita? Well, there's another trend taking movies in the moment, which typically had men in their leading roles, and they just changed them up for women. Vagina washing a movie. And believe me, Anita, if you thought whitewashing was financially dangerous, vag washing your movie is a disaster.
And it's not as if the explanations for whitewashing are ever new or particularly logical. They essentially boil down to three lackluster defenses. Laid bare this way, every one of these rationalizations is clearly absurd.
Oh my god, are you really that dumb? Look, there's a reason why people do this sort of thing. And it's typically that they want to take a well-known actor to give the film a better chance of being a financial success. Because it's the movie-making industry, not the movie-making charity or the movie-making feelings class. And this is why it's just reality that most sci-fis, no matter where they're originally set, typically get restaged to America because it's got a bigger chance of being commercially successful. Which is why every movie remake of, say, War of the Worlds was moved to America, because they thought it would make them more money. And it's exactly the same with Bollywood casting Indian actors, because they're selling stuff to a predominantly Indian audience. But apparently, according to Anita, this is all horrible cultural appropriation.
White people manage to exist in a kind of invisible zone, where they are assumed to not have a race or ethnicity. This allows whiteness to wear the cultural, religious, or social signifiers of other ethnic communities, as if they were merely accessories to be purchased at the mall. Oh wait, they are.
Which is basically the perpetually offended's way of saying that cultures should never mix or exchange ideas. I mean, what do you think this is, some sort of melting pot? No, if you cook pizza and you're not Italian, you're worse than Hitler.
That fellow?
Fellow, that word is cisgender normative, okay? You're worse than Hitler!
Too late for flattery. I'm not giving this school a dime.
If you drink wine and you're not a Roman, you're worse than Hitler's evil clone. And dear God, if you wear a vampire costume, you're culturally appropriating Transylvanians. And you're worse than Hitler's undead evil clone.
And also, stop making excuses for your terrible racist Halloween costumes.
We also need to hire more deans to decide which Halloween costumes are appropriate.
8 deans should do it.
And the outrage train just goes on and on. If you cosplay as a Jedi, you're culturally raping the Jedi. And if you dress as a furry, you're culturally appropriating other kin. Yes, we need to prosecute these evil monsters for their violent intellectual property theft of culture. I mean, never mind the of course element. If a culture has a good idea, others will start to copy it, to adopt it. Which is why the US Constitution was culturally appropriated from Magna Carta.
It's no surprise that a country founded upon the exploited labor of racialized others would feel a divine right of ownership to both those bodies and their cultures.
What's happened to this place?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or why, when the British left India, it became the largest democracy on earth, or rather going back to the warring states that it had been before the British took over. And the list just goes on and on. This is why Japan adopted Western clothing. This wasn't raping Western culture, it's just taking the best bits from it. I mean, even if you're just doing it to look cool, we have a saying for this. Imitation is the highest form of flattery. Look, Anita, I hate to break it to you, but the knowledge that we've gained in the West since the Renaissance is what revolutionized this world. And if you're going to scream cultural appropriation, just know that anyone who is not a white Westerner is culturally appropriating whenever they use the internet or speak English. And if you had your way, no other cultures would be allowed to use these inventions or languages, because it's cultural appropriation. If you think that's too tangential, there are legitimately people who want to get rid of the knowledge of the West for that exact reason.
It's going to be one of the coming questions: how do we even start to decolonize science? Because science is true because it is science. And, what can you do? If I personally were committed to enforcing decolonization, science as a whole is a product of Western modernity, and the whole thing should be scratched off, especially in Africa. The thing is, the only way to explain gravity is through Newton, who sat under a tree and saw an apple fall.
Yes. Newton's laws do give a fairly reasonable description of, reality.
So Western modernity is the problem that decolonization directly deals with, to say that we are going to decolonize by having knowledge that is produced by us, that speaks to us, and that is able to accommodate knowledge from our perspective.
So you're going to start a new subject of African science.
If we want practical solutions to how to decolonize science, we'd have to restart science from, an African perspective. There's a place in KZN, and they believe that through the black magic, you call it black magic, they call it witchcraft, others that...
Oh no, please don't say that black magic is going to be the new African science.
They call it witchcraft, others that you are able to send a lightning to strike someone. So can you explain that scientifically? Because it is something that happens
What happens next just needs to be seen to be believed. Okay, for those who missed it, that was the guy putting up his hand and saying, actually, that thing about, people being able to curse people and get lightning to strike them, it's not true. And this was their response.
Because it is something that happens
The fact that it's not true is irrelevant for African science, for decolonialized science. And here is new African science girl, absolutely overjoyed that someone doesn't believe her African science about being able to curse people and get lightning to strike them. Let's see how the moderator tackles that, shall we?
I need to address you directly. When we started this, we agreed on certain house rules.
Okay.
And by you doing that, you're disrespecting the sacredness of the space. I'd like to ask you to first please apologize to the panel directly. Number two, understand the rules that we went by in this space. Because it's going to be very problematic. When we started, this is not an antagonizing space.
But with an issue as heteropatriarchal as nuclear power, we'll have to hire multicultural empathizers, build a new safe space.
And so what you're trying to do is collapse the space and make it antagonizing.
Actually, I don't think he was trying to collapse the space. I think he was trying to bring some reality to it. Look, if there was actually a African science where you could actually curse people and get lightning to strike them, I think someone might have actually found some applications for that by now. Maybe some sort of military
We have
application,
to restart science from, I don't know, an African perspective, from
which is going to have witchcraft, where you can summon lightning bolts to strike people, but there is no gravity. Beautiful. And this is the product of Cape Town University.
So if you're saying that you disagree with her approach, it means that you are vested in the Western and Eurocentric way of understanding, which means you yourself still need to go back internally, decolonize your mind. So decolonizing the science would mean doing away with it entirely and starting all over again to deal with how we respond to the environment and how we understand it. Thank you.
So something to bear in mind the next time one of you talentless, perpetually offended muppets decides to say how evil white people are.
Come out and say it. White people, I love you. But stop using Asian wallpaper for street cred. I see what you're doing, and it's stupid. Look, I get it, white people. It's not entirely your fault, white people. Them, you know how gullible they are. Y'all had a lot of fun watching white people get Chinese tramp stamps for you, but white people got their Lululemon hands on it.
That just you doing it on the internet and in English, you are culturally appropriating white culture. Just think about it. That's good, chaps.